medium modality comic books. And back then, no idea how to do it. So I'm not an artist, just a writer. And I started looking around, started looking for artists. And this was before Facebook was really popular, or at least I didn't understand that you could go to Facebook and look for an artist. So it took a long time to find artists. I actually just don't want them. I met a girl, knew a guy who's an artist, and he and I got together. His name was Antidote. And 4 issues later, we got a tribute done. It was a long process. We found a colorist, whatever. It just kind of grew as the time went by. Just getting better, more professional looking, and then just looking for a place to put it. And Big Light Productions, we have a great horrible comicsology. It was really important for me to be on comicsology, just because they're so global, and we fit together really well for Big Light Productions in South. So we've been doing really well. And social media has been great, and we've really reached a lot of people through Instagram, Twitter.
Right now, Lindsay, you are getting Hellcat Press underway. Just sticking your toes in the water.
Yep.
How's that going for you thus far?
So far, it's been pretty good. We have published our very first ever anthology, Dark Lady. It's an all-female horror comics anthology. And basically, I kind of had this idea that I really wanted to produce my own comics anthology. I have been contributed to other comics anthologies in the past, and I've had friends who put together various comics anthologies. And so I sort of looked at it and said, it's probably and basically what I wanted to do was starting my own label or publisher, or what you want to call it, publisher, that's what Hellcat Press is. And, got a website and everything. Found it kind of taking on a life of its own. That's approach.
All right, and Chris, from the artist standpoint, is it more difficult, in your opinion, to get stuff up and running with being the one who's got a pencil or paintbrush in hand to get the product out there? Because it's on YouTube, on the pages, and all the panels, and make sure you've got everything in accordance with what the writer or what have in your head to plot out.
I have to say, the entire creative aspect of any book, the writer is paramount, because in art working so far, you have to have a story to carry a series. So the hardest part really is finding a creative team that gels. It's really, really important to have that kind of connection. You want to tell the same story, or at least you get the same vibe, and you get the pictures across that the word we're trying to express. For me personally, I've been doing creator-owned since '99, and I venture to say that the thing I've learned the most is that the only way to really make it creator-owned is you have to be around, you have to stick around. That's most important. You have to be able to take your hits, know that some shows you're going to be sort of in the shadows because there's a lot of big name creators that you yourself would actually want to go talk to if you weren't working your own table, and know that, and accept it, respect it, and just keep working at your craft.
Right now, Dr. Chris, good morning. Thank you for joining us.
Awesome.
You're joining Hellcat Press and working with Lindsay, am I correct? That was the game plan?
No, it's
I went our first time on his radio show to promote Hellcat.
Okay.
And we can sell in our copies of Dark Lady. Hopefully we can get the second anthology going, and this is looking to that.
I have my own comic book currently.
Okay, please, remind us about that.
We started a Kickstarter last year for a feature-length film, Dracula, where we take submissions for the actual graphic novel. This entire gender swap Dracula story, where every character is literally changed. Dracula, Van Helsing, Jonathan Harker, and all those male characters are become female. And Mina, Lucy, Dracula's bride, something like that. And it is the central core story that you know of Dracula written by Bram Stoker. But obviously with the twist, even Dr. Ray Stoker, who's the living descendant of Bram Stoker, thought it was really interesting. Some of the influences come of like the vampirism and the female feminine mystique of the characters that we drawn from films like Frightening Part 2 and like Once Bitten, which had strong female vampire leads, not the typical male vampire.
All right, now, you brought up a really good element in independent work, Kickstarters. What would you say is the benefit of a Kickstarter, and what would you say is the downside to the Kickstarter?
Downside to Kickstarter is you have to spend every waking moment using Kickstarter to try and raise the money you need, using every email contact, social media form, sending press releases out. It's an 8-hour day job. It's not recommended.
All right, Lindsay, have you had any experience with Kickstarter?
When I was putting Dark Lady together, I did a lot of research about Kickstarter, and I read a lot of articles that people had written, people writing about their successes and their failures on Kickstarter. And what I took away from that was that a great deal of Kickstarter projects do not succeed because the person organizing it has not taken into account shipping prices for all of the I guess the multi-tier, donate X amount of money and receive Y gift or freebie or goodie, and people weren't always taking into consideration that those things need to be shipped. So I was actually very intimidated by Kickstarter and decided not to use Kickstarter. I decided that I would raise the money myself. I do a lot of arts and crafts, and I decoupage empty cigar boxes with comic books and sell them at conventions. And I usually make a lot of money doing that. So what I decided to do was, for Boston Comic Con, I would show up with about 60 boxes, and I would put all of those proceeds toward Dark Lady. And I made a lot of spreadsheets, and I went online and I figured out how much it would cost to print the book with different page numbers and stuff like that. And I kind of walked away thinking to myself, okay, I need to make a minimum of $1,000, and I wound up surpassing that. So I decided not to do Kickstarter, and I decided to raise the money myself, and I was successful.
All right, Bob, your thoughts and experiences with Kickstarter, please enlighten us.
I've had some success with Kickstarters, but I agree with what she just said, where Kickstarters, a lot of times you don't get what it's going to take to produce it, ship it, but at the same time, I think that it's in the creator's responsibility to also pay for their creation. So the way I look at a Kickstarter is more of a pre-sale, and it's just another way of getting your product out and getting your title out. So you could do a Kickstarter and you're reaching so many more people that you would never reach before, and you're giving them an opportunity to jump on a first print of your comic. I always do an executive producers page for anybody that backs it. There's a page where their name's in there, and I give them the opportunity, if there's somebody that works with a publisher, a small name publisher, they can, a lot of times they'll put, instead of their name, they'll put the publisher's name in there, because then that gives them like a little bit of an advertisement. But I think my main goal when I do a Kickstarter is I look at it as a pre-sale for getting the title out there and increasing the fan base, but also giving people something that you can't get anywhere else but the Kickstarter. Everything that comes with the Kickstarter is it's exclusive to the people that are backing it. And once that Kickstarter is over, somebody that says like, hey, I saw on that Kickstarter that you did a little tear pop, and I'm like, well, that was just for the Kickstarter. That's not for sale anymore. If I do a statue of a character, they break the mold after the Kickstarter, so it gives somebody a benefit to say like, I'm a big fan of this, I want something that there's only 5 of them out there, and as fans, I think that they really enjoy that.
Now, Chris, being an artist,
Yes.
you're always out pushing prints and taking commissions. The
Right.
idea of Kickstarter, is that frustrating in some aspects? Because, I mean, you're already having to have prints processed and
Right.
you're selling those and you're taking commissions. Is the concept of a Kickstarter another weight on your shoulder in a way, if you go that route as an artist?
Well, I could say, see, the thing is, since I also create some indie stuff, it's a little bit different because I'm responsible for sort of the start to the finish of the entire thing. So Kickstarter for me, when I kickstarted the last book that I did, I didn't want to kickstart every single issue. I wanted to make sure that if I did it, I did my due diligence on the business side of it and figured out how many copies was going to cost this much, and you kind of can't always know exactly how much shipping is going to cost if you're going to wherever you're going to ship certain things to. But I had my Kickstarter pay for issues 1 and 2, and then I booked a bunch of shows with the Kickstarter so I could make the money to pay for 3 and 4 and all that kind of stuff. So as far as just the artist side of it, it's really taxing, because all I have to offer as rewards really are just prints and commissions and all that kind of stuff. And I don't, it's probably not the smartest thing, but it's the best thing I have to offer. Is if you certain reward tiers, you got original pages or you had an original concept piece or something like that. Kickstarter is weird because you're asking people you don't know to support a dream that they have zero, not zero interest in, but it hasn't been their dream since they were 10 years old to produce a comic. It hasn't been their dream that they're sitting in their house for 12 hours a day when nobody's paying attention and you're producing this thing. So you have to give them something back. You have to do, like Bob said, some things individual only to that campaign to try to get people invested. So a long-winded answer to your question is being an artist in a Kickstarter is extremely difficult because you have to offer all these things to satisfy a whole bunch of different needs. You don't even know what your customer, your fan base is. It's very, very difficult as an artist.
All right. So with that, I'll start it with Dr. Chris here. Doctor, board certified, right?
Yes.
What's been your worst experience so far being an independent creator? I mean, what's been your ultimate low?
I recently, I'd say recently, as of like last year, Jonathan Mayberry, who's a New York Times bestselling author, who's also the author, the writer of IDW's V Wars series, which spun out of the V Wars anthology books, had me submit a story for them for the upcoming originally it was supposed to be the third volume, but it's been pushed back to the 5th volume, and the amount of times that when a big independent publisher, as IDW is, who owns a large percent of the comic book media out there, I mean, they publish things like Transformers, G.I. Joe, My Little Pony, X-Files, Godzilla, I mean, it goes on. And they can be really difficult to get a story submitted through the way they want it. But when you have your editor, Jonathan, who pushes for you to get in there, it's a big help, and that's been one of the biggest challenges, just trying to meet IDW's standards with my story submission. Jonathan has been a big help in getting it the IDW way, as they call it, in order to find the right flow for the story that I submitted for V Wars. V Wars, the comic book series, ended as of issue 12, but their anthology series continues on in books, because IDW publishes novels now as well. It's something they've gotten into over the last couple of years, which is really great, because it's opened their medium up for tons of independent writers to break into IDW, because they don't hire from without. They if you're working for the company already, then you can submit a story. But this is a great way for freelancers to get a story in there and start working on comics.
All right. Now, Lindsay, what's been your ultimate disappointing experience thus far trying to get the ball rolling with your product, your books?
Well, I would say that when I first had the idea and I was looking for submissions, I pitched it to a co-ed group of people, men and women, And it was a moderated group discussion as well. There was a moderator. And I started by saying, I want to put together an all-female horror comics anthology because horror is a very male-dominated genre and women are very underrepresented. And this one guy interrupts me and he just starts yelling, Mary Shelley, over and over again. And if anyone doesn't know that, Mary Shelley wrote Frankenstein. And that's it, 200 years ago. So he just starts yelling Mary Shelley over and over and over again. And I keep trying to talk and he just keeps getting louder and louder and he's talking over me. And I look over at the moderator, the guy who's moderating this discussion, and he's not doing anything. He's just sitting with this blank kind of expression on his face. I was finally able to finish my pitch. And, I said, while I do want all of the contributors to be female or to, identify as female, the men out there, you can offer your support. You can talk about this on your blogs, on your social media. You can offer, feedback if someone shows you a script or some art, and there will be co-ed anthologies in the future. But right now, we're doing an all-female one. And then I opened the floor to questions, and the moderator raised his hand, and he said, yeah, but what if I collaborate with a woman? And it sort of turned into a giant joke from there, because the other guys in the room were like, what if I just don't tell you I'm a man? Can I use my initials, like they're gender neutral? What if I write about a female character? Are you gonna ask for proof of gender? And it was really like, I was furious, but I was also really devastated by it because this was something that I was really, really passionate about. And these people who I had thought of as my friends were, it seemed, trying their hardest to shoot it down and to turn it into a giant joke. And none of the women who were in the room asked me any questions. None of them raised their hands to say anything. And that was like a really disheartening experience. And I went home and I was, saying to my husband, I was like, this happened and it was really, really crappy and it was like the worst. And he was like, well, let's just put up the website and we'll see what happens. So we launched the Hellcat Press website with the submission page for Dark Lady. And a couple days later, I had an email from a woman in Finland who had found the website and wanted to submit a story. And the idea that she pitched me was hands down the most disgusting thing I'd ever read. But I was there like, you know what I needed in this anthology? I need this gross, horrifying, disgusting idea. And I was like, no, I need this. You're in. Get me the art by August. You're in. So, yeah, that was pretty much.
That's a one-of-a-kind type of story.
It's great. It's in here. It's, let me fill this out. It is called Zits by Hannah Pirita Lakonen.
Okay.
It's very good.
Now, Bob, what's been your ultimate disappointing experience being an independent creator?
Probably that I'm not an artist. Being a writer, I have so many scripts that are written for my title, and right now my artist that I'm currently working with, who I've done all 4 with, he has a full-time job, and it takes us 4 or 5 months to get an issue out, and and I know I have so much respect to all the artists out there, and I know how much work they put in. I know that they are up late at night. I have so much respect for them. But I wish that I could draw. That's what ever since I was a kid, I wanted to do comic books because I wanted to be an artist. And at a very early age, I realized that I suck at art, so I had to be a writer. But I think that's my biggest disappointment in life, that I'm not an artist.
All right, Chris, what's been your ultimate disappointing experience in this game?
Not to be that guy, but I'd have to say that there's nothing really disappointing about doing this. We're creating comics, we're doing stuff that we've dreamt about for a long time. We're out there, and whether it's 1 or 1 million or 1,000 or whatever, there's somebody there picking up your book and they're reading it and they're giving you feedback, and it's, I'm lucky enough, and I know Bob's been around for a while doing this stuff, where we have a good little fan base. I'm not familiar with the other books, but there's nothing disappointing about the fact that you go to a show and there's at least one person who you saw at the show last year who's getting ready for the next couple of issues, and yeah, there's negatives to the industry like any other industry that you're in, but I mean honestly, again, nobody has to care about this stuff. No one has to buy your book. No one has to come to your table. No one has to get a commission or ask you to write something or whatever. And people do. No matter how few or how many, they do. So there's nothing disappointing about that. Are there shows where you wish you made more money? Absolutely. Are there challenges like finding a good creative team and somebody who's reliable or whatever? Do I overbook because I want to make enough money to continue to do shows and it constantly stresses me out? Sure, all those things happen. But at the end of the day, I'm at a comic book show right now talking about comics, and I'm going to go sit at my table, and I'm going to draw some characters. Somebody just bought the cover of issue 4 of my book. Guy hasn't known me for more than a month. So, no, there aren't any disappointments. There's just challenges.
Yeah,
So, with those challenges, do those challenges in a way become those inadvertently the high, the ultimate payoff in a way?
I would say, for me, every day is a challenge to become a better storyteller, a better artist, a better person at shows, a better person overall. So anything that you face at a show, you can turn into any kind of, rewarding, challenging sort of thing. A couple weeks ago, I was at a show, and I was sitting between, the guy to my right was the biggest artist right now in the industry, and the guy 2 spots to my left was an artist who I absolutely grew up just in awe of. I had zero business being in that row. I was in it, and it was great, and it wasn't lost on me that I had zero, business being there, but I was there. And the stuff that I learned from these guys, and how hard they worked, and the fact they're always continuing to, work on their craft, they had challenges too. They had disappointments in their careers or whatever, but yeah, I guess you look at it as motivation. But you should always just want to get better. Whether somebody, comes and blows, sunshine up your ass and says that you're the greatest thing since sliced bread, you should have enough, integrity and work ethic to just want to get better anyway.
All right. Now, Bob, what has been some of your ultimate highlights?
I mean, I think just like Chris said, like being here on this panel. 2 years ago, I didn't have anything. I had a script, and now I have 4 issues done. I feel like I have a pretty good fan base. And also, like Chris said, like how can you be disappointed with being where you are? And I think if there are too many disappointments, you're going to stop doing it, and you're not going to be around to even answer that question. So, I mean, my highs are being a part of this community. Like Chris said, also, there is a small family of independent creators, and we all look out for each other, and we all support each other. And to be a part of that small family, it's amazing to just see the growth in the people that you work with, and to see the growth in yourself, and to also just know that there's that selflessness, that everybody's not trying to take their own piece of the pie. That pie is big enough to feed everybody, and it's very humbling to be a part of that, and to respect and be respected in that family.
That's actually a really solid point. I don't want to jump on what they were going to say, but if you do this long enough, there is this little family of creator-owned people that you see at shows, and you run into each other and you talk about, I didn't realize it was going to be this, or your little challenges or whatever. But it's really, really cool to know that there's other people in the same boat with you, and you're all paddling as hard as you possibly can to get there. And I'm lucky enough to do panels here and there at shows, and people ask me questions, what is the biggest challenge or this and that, do you do fan art? Do you do only your characters and stuff like that? I'll say this: my only advice to anyone who wants to do creator-owned is, if it's not what you need to do, if it's not your addiction, then please don't take a table that somebody who wants it so bad could get and could do, and don't insult any one of us who works as hard as humanly possible to get this stuff out. If you don't respect it and don't want to put the work in, then just find something else to do, because we want that in our circle. We want those people, with us, working next to us. doing this thing that we're doing.
All right, now, Dr. Chris, what has been some of your highs, some of your ultimate achievements that you're very proud of?
Getting script completed. That's really difficult. Finding an artist to work with has been the biggest challenge, but getting a script completed and then actually getting it praised by people, even though they're not artists themselves, but send it out to people to, review and read and kind of proofread and go over, and they're like, that would really work. That's a great idea. Find an artist. I'm not an artist. I'm a writer like you, but when I get people like Doc Ray Stoker and Jonathan Mayberry and people at IDW really kind of looking at what I'm doing and then going, this is something that we would really want to do. Obviously we can't get you an artist, but this is something we would really want to publish. You just got to get us 5 pages done. That's a really big accomplishment and achievement, and a lot of really great gratitude towards me too. I have a short comic book, a 32-page comic that I'm working with an artist right now, which will take a year to probably complete. But we're also teaming up with a suicide preventional center because it's about 2 teenagers in the 90s who both love Neil Gaiman's Sandman and death. And they fall in love, and they both suffer heavily from depression, and one of them wants to kill themselves. And I've given the script to like 4 or 5 people, a couple friends of mine, a couple people who don't know me, and one person who's actually really big in the industry who I came on my show, and I was like, I would really love it if you could read this. It's 32 pages, it'd be a really quick read. And he says he handed it to his wife, and his wife was bawling in tears, and a bunch of people, and a couple people that don't know me, one person who doesn't know me, and a friend of mine said they were just absolutely in tears at the end of it, and one person said that they've tried to commit suicide before, and they couldn't finish reading it. And I was like, yay for the reaction being that emotionally great, even though it's kind of sad, but still, that means that if it turns into a comic book, people will read this and go, hopefully, oh my God, I've wanted to commit suicide, this book kind of helped me. And that's what the whole purpose of the comic really is, to get teenagers to go, I have a problem, I've wanted to kill myself. This comic book woke me up to that, and I called the number in the back of the comic book for the suicide hotline to say, I don't want to kill myself, I want to live. And that's the whole purpose of the comic. But people's emotional reaction, that was a really big deal to me, knowing that they, it broke that up to them. Even though it's a sad reaction, it's still, better than them going, meh.
Okay. Lindsay, what's been some of your ultimate achievements?
Well, I guess the fact that I put the book together and actually have it done and in front of me is like my biggest achievement of all. But I kind of considered every pitch and every submission to be like a little small victory. I was really excited. Let me think. I promoted a lot online too. I put up posts on Facebook and Twitter and Tumblr and Reddit and Instagram, and I got people actually from, I got submissions, from Europe, from Canada, and from all over the United States, and I was kind of just like, my mind was blown that women from pretty much all around the world were contacting me and saying, I'd like to be part of your anthology. I had a lot of men contacting me and saying, this sounds really cool, can I help you promote it? Actually, what's funny is that even though, I had a very negative experience with some of the men that I talked about, my anthology to, every other man I have talked to has been enthusiastic. Every other man I've talked to has said, oh my God, that sounds cool. When can I buy it? That's really neat. My initial experience pitching it to a co-ed group did make me a little gun shy, I guess, and a little bit, I had a little bit of like self-doubt with it. But every other person I've talked to has been excited about the idea, and that makes me so happy. And I feel like I've learned a lot from this experience, and I would love to put out another anthology.
All right. Now, Chris.
Yes.
Lindsay mentioned social media. How important is social media in getting yourself out there? You're an artist. You're doing a lot of, no offense, you're doing a lot of the grunt work. You're throwing on the pencils, you're throwing on the inks. If you're even braving it, you're painting. Is it you do time in front of the board and then you start throwing everything you can at social media, as opposed to going and, let's say 10, 15 years ago, you would try to like collect the money, any way you could, collecting bottles, cans, and try to like maybe
Right.
get an ad in Wizard. But I mean, that's not available anymore. So I mean, like now it's Instagram, now it's Pinterest, now it's Facebook.
Right.
How important is that for you to use that to get yourself out there?
Social media, I have like a love-hate relationship with social media. I can't stand the fact that it's as important as it is. It really bothers me. But it's also not lost on me that it is everything to a visual medium that, art and comics is. And it's all anybody pays attention to. There are shows that you sign up for that want to know your Twitter handle so they can see how many followers you have to see if it's worth making you a guest and such. It doesn't matter how talented you are. It just matters how many followers you have. That's the part about social media that I hate. I hate the fact that, I guess it's self-imposed, but I have this pressure on myself to post at least 2 new pieces every day to Instagram so I could share it to Twitter and Facebook, and then every 10 minutes I monitor it to see what kind of reaction I'm getting to make sure that I comment enough back to it to try to build, whatever is happening. I got excited the other day because a piece I did on Instagram got over 100 likes. That should not be the case, but yeah, I was excited about it. It's weird. I get it. I know that people in the industry who maybe you want to make contact with who don't know you can know you through social media, and it's very, very powerful, and it's the way the world is going. It's like kind of saying that I wish I still had a rotary phone when it's kind of idiotic, and get on with it and move forward and know how important it is. But I don't know. The reaction is cool. This is going to sound egotistical, and it's not that way. I like the fact that I have fans. I like the fact that there are people who specifically check out my page and my Instagram and follow me because they like what I do. It validates all the hard work and all the defeating of my own self-doubt to post those things. So that's cool. Social media it kind of makes you feel good about yourself sometimes, and also you can post a picture that you really like and it absolutely goes nowhere, and then you wonder, what the hell am I doing? Case in point, got a quick story for you. You ready for this? It's really funny. Not funny. So I do this Batman piece a couple of days ago, and it blows up, and I can't stand drawing Batman because he's been drawn in every single position imaginable. But I do this kick-ass Batman piece, and everybody likes it. It's shared, it's this whole thing. The next day, I post a better piece of the cover of issue 4 of First World, my book. It's like 20 likes. Nobody cared. Nobody cared. And honestly, it was like a kick in the groin because the Batman one kept growing. And you have to go past that piece to see the Batman. And nobody cared about it because they didn't know the characters yet because didn't have 75 years of advertising behind it or whatever. So thank you, social media, for there's my love-hate. It's awesome. The piece sold. The cover didn't get any love, but I really wish people cared about that more, so there's another long-winded answer for you. I love it. I hate it. It's pressure. But it's the only way to get people to notice your stuff when you're not on the con circuit. And I get a lot of jobs off of it. A lot of jobs.
All right. Now, Bob, you have taken social media and taken to it like a duck to water. And Salvagers, your book, has been very, very prominent on social media.
Yeah, I mean, obviously social media is free, so it's a free way to advertise what you're doing, and when you're paying for everything, that's the first thing I did was I realized, like, okay, if I learn how to use Facebook, I can use that to my advantage, and I can promote it, I can advertise it, and you can do all that with Facebook for free, and every once in a while you can boost a post. And so I read everything that I could. I read all these books on how, like, the successful way to use social media, and one of the things was it's saying don't try to master all of them, just try to pick 1 or 2. And I think with comic books, Facebook and Instagram are the best ways to go about it. Instagram's a very visual social media application. Facebook, how often do people post something where there's no picture on it where it gets a lot of attention or shares? It's always a picture. Like Chris said, it's a picture that people are like, oh, I love that picture. I'm going to like it. I'm going to comment. I'm going to share it. So Twitter is more, dialogue and passing it around. So I tried to do my best, not being an artist, I tried my best to take art and use Instagram, whether it's taking panels from my pages and always trying to do it in an interesting way. But, you have to do it every day. You have to do it, I always say, like, at 10 o'clock in the morning and at 4 or 5 o'clock at night. You want to get people who just got their cup of coffee, they sat down, they finished looking through their emails, and they're like, okay, now I'm just going to zone out on social media for the next couple hours, so 10 o'clock. Then you have the people at the end of their day where they're like, all right, I'm just waiting for 5 o'clock to come rolling around where I can get the hell out of here. I'm going to go check out social media. So 10 o'clock and 5 o'clock are the best times, and I learned that through books and also by posting things and realizing, like, wow, that's been out there for 10 minutes and I don't have any likes. Delete it. And then maybe an hour from now, post it again. And an hour later, boom, the same post, but just an hour later, it takes off. So that took me years to figure out, like, how to use that and come up with a science, but also reading books on how to do it. And you can tag things. You can put your Big Cartel site, if that's where you sell your physical copy. If you're on Comixology, you can put that link in there, and hopefully get it shared enough that people who don't know you are now like, oh, what's this? I'm into science fiction, and I'm gonna like this page.
Now, Chris, how beneficial, how important is social media then for you as a writer?
Really good. In fact, we keep we're my table right now, the Dr. Chris Radio of Horror show. We are having people, we actually are like almost bribing people in a way by giving away tons of horror-related t-shirts, posters, DVDs, toys, stuff, whatever, to like us, follow us on social media, YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, and they get something to walk away to the table with.
All right. And Lindsay, your beneficial experiences with social media, what have they been?
Well, the second I got my website up and running, I started using social media to promote the website. So I started using Twitter, Facebook, Tumblr, and Reddit as a way of promoting my website. I would say, like, hey, Hellcat Press is looking for submissions, so here's the website. So I felt that it wasn't enough to just have the website up. You have to alert people to the fact that there is a website and alert people to the fact that it is up. Like, I don't have a lot of Twitter followers, but I tweeted about the website and then a couple of them retweeted, and so it kind of grew from there. Reddit has a million little different subreddits, and they have they have little forums for women writers, people who write horror, people who like horror comics, and I would basically just kind of spam all the different message boards and say, like, okay, well, all right, I'm going to post about Hellcat Press here, and then I'm going to wait an hour and post about it here, and then post about it a different one. Nearly got kicked off of Reddit for a little bit, but it's just because I was overposting.
You got caught, because everyone does that.
I almost got caught. Everyone does that. Social media has been pretty great because it alerts people to the fact that there is a website, hellcatpress.com.
All right, and as we wrap up, I want to give you guys the opportunity to plug yourselves, what table you're at, and where people can find your products. So we'll start down here, Chris.
Yes. Sorry, I was on social media.
Hey, totally understandable. So where can people find you online?
Well, on Facebook, it's The Art of Chris Campana. Instagram is Campana Art. I made it difficult, so you have to do the A at the end of Campana and also the first and only A in art, because I wanted to make it harder to find me. Twitter, I never tweet, is Chris Campana and the number 1. And the comic, which is most important, is firstworldcomic.com.
All right. And
Sword and sorcery awesomeness in comic book form.
What table can we find you at here today at Hartford Comic Con?
Every table. 307.
All right. Bob?
Salvagers is on Facebook at Salvager Series. It's on Instagram, Salvager Series, and it's on Twitter, Salvager Series. They were all available for me. You can buy our comic on Big Cartel, and I will be at table 123 And I even have a pilot from my comic cosplaying somewhere in Hartford Comic Con today, which I'm very excited about.
All right, thank you, Bob. Chris?
I'm at table 209, actually right next to Lindsay, and you can find me on Facebook at Radio of Horror. You want to look at the list of guests that have been on my show on Pinterest, you go to Dr. Chris's Radio Horror. On YouTube, all past interviews are on there for all the different guests who have come on the show under Radio Horror. And on Twitter, it's Chris D. SAV.
All right, and Lindsay?
I am on Facebook, Lindsay Moore, but Hellcat Press is also on Facebook, Hellcat Press. You can follow me on Twitter at the Linny G. Hellcat Press has a website too, that's hellcatpress.com. I am at table 210, and right now you can only buy the books at table 210. However, this week we will be selling them on the website. We're going to put that on the website this week.
All
So,
right.
coming
Thank you
soon.
very much, guys. Thank you for coming out. Thank you to all our viewers today. And thanks again for being our first panel here for Hartford Comic Con 2015.
Thanks, Thomas.
Today we're here to figure out what are the best means to get an independent product up and running. Now, Bob, you've got a lot of experience with your comics, salvagers, and things like productions. Please, how did you get that started? How did you get started?
Well, I just had a concept, an idea to do a sci-fi project, and I thought the best medium to put out was comic books. And I actually had no idea how to do it, because I'm not an artist, just a writer, and I started looking around, started looking for artists. And this was before Facebook was really popular, or at least I didn't understand that they could go to Facebook and look for artists. So it took a long time to find artists that actually just don't want them. I met a girl, knew a guy who's an artist, and he and I got together. His name was George Antidote. And 4 issues later, we got a tribute guy. It was a long process. We found a colorist, letterer, it just kind of grew as time went by. It more, just getting better, more professional looking. And then just looking for a place to put it. Big Light Productions, we have a great work with comicsology. Really,
You're going to be sort of in the shadows because there's a lot of big name creators that you yourself would actually want to go talk to if you weren't working your own table. And know that, and accept it, respect it, and just keep working at your craft.
Right now, Dr. Chris, good morning. Thank you for joining us.
awesome.
You're joining Hellcat Press and working with Lindsay, am I correct? That was the game plan?
No, it's
I went first time on his radio show to promote Hellcat.
Okay.
And we can sell enough copies of Dark Lady. Hopefully we can get the second anthology going, and this is looking to contribute to that.
Okay, please, enlighten us about that.
We started a Kickstarter last year for a feature-length film, Dracula, where we take the entire cast and story of Dracula and we gender swap every single character. The Kickstarter failed for the movie, but we decided to continue on as a comic book. And we are in the middle of artists making submissions for the actual graphic novel. This entire gender swap Dracula story, where every character is literally changed. Dracula, Van Helsing, Jonathan Harker, and all those male characters are vegan. And Mina, Lucy, Dracula's Brides, and different men. And it is the central core story that you know of Dracula written by Bram Stoker. But obviously with the twist, even Dr. Stoker, who is the living descendant of Bram Stoker, thought it was really interesting. Some of the influences come of like the vampirism and the female feminine mystique of the characters that we drawn from films like Frightening Part 2 and like Once Bitten, which had strong female vampire leads, the typical male vampire.
All right, now, you brought up a really good element in independent work, Kickstarters. What would you say is the benefit of a Kickstarter, and what would you say is the downside to the Kickstarter?
Downside of Kickstarter is you have to spend every waking moment using Kickstarter to try and raise the money you need, using every email contact, social media form, sending press releases out. It's an 8-hour day job. It's not recommended.
All right, Lindsay, have you had any experience with Kickstarter?
When I was putting Dark Lady together, I did a lot of research about Kickstarter, and I read a lot of articles that people had written, people writing about their successes and their failures on Kickstarter, and what